And for Off the Block, I'm Vinny Lopes, and we are now joined by the NCAA Men's Volleyball Committee Chairman, Ron Shayka. And Ron, it's been a little bit of a crazy offseason in college men's volleyball, but one of the intriguing storylines has been your guys' recent NCAA meeting, your annual meeting in Indianapolis a few weeks ago. And, can you just talk about what that meeting was like and what came out of it?
Well, our annual meeting, we tend to take care of some regular business. We review our championship, which we did once again this year, and make sure that it ran as well as we liked, and start to talk about what next year's championship will look like, and if there's any changes that need to be done. I think that's the main focus. We also look at some things like rules and other issues that may be on the horizon for the NCAA, but there was a good deal of discussion as to where we're going as a sport, the game of men's volleyball.
Yeah, and talking about the NCAA tournaments, I guess we'll kind of start with the one that just happened. What was the committee's overall feel of the NCAA tournament in Stanford and Palo Alto?
Well, I think we were really pleased, certainly with the level of play, and particularly the national championship match was a classic. There's no doubt about it. It was one of the best, hardest fought matches that I've been associated with, and to see two equally balanced teams fight for that championship the way they did was really something special, and I think that the folks that were there were treated to a great match. And the folks at Stanford are first class. They did a great job of running the event, so I think our championship and our expectations were met.
And moving forward at the looking at future NCAA tournaments, was there any suggestions or recommendations that the committee is going to propose moving forward?
I think we're right now in a status quo situation as far as that goes. We're looking to continue to play in matches at the site of the national championship tournament and keep the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday format. I think that has worked very well for us, and it's been a great experience for the student athletes. I think that that's the feedback that we've heard. And next year we're at Penn State, and historically they've done a very nice job of hosting that national championships. So we're looking forward to another successful event.
Yeah, and just talking a little bit about the championship structure, I know that there had been some talk about possibly moving the play-in matches to a Saturday. Do you foresee that maybe in the future that happening a couple years down the road, or is this kind of the format that we're going to see just moving forward?
I think optimistically we would see the play-in matches, well, maybe they wouldn't even be, quote, play-in matches. They would be a true first round and a full part of the full NCAA championship tournament. That would be the best scenario. I think until we expand the field a little bit more, we probably will stay in the same format we're in. And once we get to possibly 8 teams, then I think we're looking at a situation where we might have some regional quarterfinals that would be played on campuses the week before the championships.
And also we talked a little bit about the NCAA tournament format itself, but I do want to actually ask you about the selection process. This was the first year that you guys used the RPI formula. When you guys were just talking about the year that was, how do you guys feel about the RPI formula? Are we potentially going to see any tweaks to it going into next season?
It's kind of interesting that the championship match played out as it did, because when all the numbers were actually crunched, the difference between Lewis and Loyola was minuscule, and I think that was reflected in the championship match. And in this particular year, I think the number crunching verified or validated the teams that moved forward, and it certainly mirrored how closely contested that championship match was. So this year it was spot on, and whether it stays that way for the future, who knows, but there would be certainly no reason for us to readjust anything because it was so successful this year.
And, one of the things that I always enjoy during the off-season is taking a look at some of the minute notes that come out of this, and just maybe some of the interesting rule discussions that you guys have. I know a couple of years ago there was talk about, having a discussion about should the libero serve or not. And I just want to ask you, was there any kind of, little, small, interesting rule discussions amongst you guys?
I think there was one particularly interesting item, and as a volleyball nerd, I mean that's I think it's interesting, and that's the libero uniform discussion. I don't know how many other people think that's interesting, but the NCAA men has made a proposal to stick to the rule as it's enforced by the FIVB, which is a little bit more liberal than what USA Volleyball was doing. And they have, USA Volleyball has its challenges with all the different constituencies that they oversee, but the men's game seems to parallel the FIVB game a little bit more, and we don't see the uniform issue being that big of a deal, and so we won't have all the limitations that I think that USA Volleyball will have.
Now, we've talked a little bit about the meeting, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, because this offseason has been highlighted with lots of coaching changes, and in addition to your role with the NCAA, you're also one of the athletic directors at George Mason, and Fred Cho announced that he was stepping down. I have to ask, how surprised were you when you heard that Fred was going to be resigning?
I can't say I was surprised. As working with Fred over the years, we've had a lot of discussions about career moves and so on, and I think what you're seeing a little bit of a reflection in the men's game is that there are some vast discrepancy between the men and women's games, and we've seen a lot of talented coaches leave the men's game and make a move to the women's game where it's a little bit more financially stable for those folks that made the jump, and I think Fred was in a very similar situation with a young family, and making a change for him right now made sense for him personally. He had a fabulous run here at Mason and built his outstanding program, and we're really sorry to see him leave. But we certainly understand his personal situation and what he had to do that was best for his family.
And I know that it's still early in the coaching search process. I know that we can't get into any specific names, but just to get your sense, what are some of the characteristics that you're looking for in a coach to come in for George Mason?
I think in the men's game, you're looking at people that really know that they have to wear multiple hats. In our situation and in many situations, the coach cannot have the luxury of just worrying about one or two aspects of a program. They have to do it all, and we're looking for somebody that has a passion and one that has multiple talents and skill sets, because they do a little bit of everything from the recruiting to the scheduling to the training to all of the compliance needs to fundraising, and it's quite a workload to juggle, but there's a lot of good young folks out there who are willing to put the time, energy, and effort into it.
And final question for me before we wrap on up, just I want to get your thoughts. Looking at the overall state of the game right now, how would you assess just where the game is at right now moving forward?
It's interesting. I think over the last couple of years, you see young players like Taylor Sander or Aaron Russell graduating, and a couple weeks later, they're on the playing with the national team in World League play, and not just being on the roster, but being major contributors. So the product that we're producing, it continues to improve, and that says a lot for the coaches, I think, in the collegiate ranks. We're training athletes to play at a very high level, and I think we're seeing that across the country, and even with a limited number of programs, I think the level of play continues to go up, and we continue to attract really first-rate athletes. So I don't see that trend changing anytime soon. I think that we'll continue to get better, and I think that's one of our strengths. What we have to do is try to get more schools to have more programs, and I think that's our biggest challenge ahead of us.